بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. We thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for this gathering and allowing us to get together in this blessed month of Ramadan. In this series of lectures, we will be going over the characteristics of the pious, the characteristics of the muttaqin. We hear these stories about the prophets and the Sahaba and the Salaf al-Salih and the righteous from the scholars of the past. And we need to understand that they were human beings just like us. They used to get tired just like us. They used to need food and water just like us. They used to need sleep just like us. They had emotions just like us. They were human beings. Yet still they had certain characteristics, certain things about them that distinguished them from the rest of humanity, that made them special amongst humanity. So the purpose of these series of lectures is to go over some of their characteristics, highlight those characteristics, some examples of those, and then emphasize ourselves and encourage ourselves to try to emulate those characteristics. Now, I have attempted to group some of the similar characteristics so we can follow a theme. And the theme for today is characteristics regarding submission and devotion to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The first characteristic that all of the pious, all of the muttaqin have, is their love for ibadah, their love for worship. Whenever it came to worship, they did not treat worship as a chore. They did not treat worship as something that is boring to them. Rather, worship, ibadah, was something that gave their hearts ease. It gave their hearts peace. That is why the Messenger ﷺ told us that when he went on the journey of Isra wa Mi'raj, when he saw the prophets in their graves, they were in a state of prayer, because the ibadah and the prayer is what gave them peace. It is what gave them happiness, and it is what gave them love. So this is a characteristic that is universal amongst the muttaqin. They love the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we have a story from one of the Sahaba. It is the story of Abbad ibn Bishr radiallahu ta'ala. One time the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was on an expedition with the Sahaba. And they went to camp in a valley. And that valley had a certain opening that was liable to being attacked. And he chose two of his Sahaba, Ammar ibn Yasir and Abbad ibn Bishr radiallahu ta'ala. And he asked them to stand in guard, stand watch in the night. Abbad ibn Bishr said that I will stand, and he told Ammar ibn Yasir that you go sleep. Or rather, it was Ammar ibn Yasir who was the one who was supposed to watch, and he told Abbad to go to sleep. What Abbad does with his free time, and this is their love for worship. Rather than sleeping, he stood the night in prayer. He was worshiping his Lord. And this was not an obligatory prayer. This was a sunnah nafil prayer. All because he wanted to draw closer to his Lord. This is how much they loved worship. Every opportunity that they got, they rushed towards it, to the point that they even sacrificed their sleep for this. While he was worshiping, Ammar ibn Yasir fell asleep while he was on watch. And a spy from the enemies had seen this. He saw that the man that's supposed to be watching the opening has fell asleep. And he sees that the other man that's supposed to be asleep is worshiping, he's praying. So he gets his arrows out and he starts shooting at Abbad ibn Bishr. And one arrow hits him, and he does not break his prayer. Another arrow hits him, and he still does not break his prayer. At this point, he is starting to bleed out, and he still does not break his prayer. Finally, when he completes the surah that he was on, and he completes his prayer, that is when he goes to wake up Ammar ibn Yasir, and he tells him, "Wake up, I have been hit," and alarm the others. Tell everybody that there's somebody outside trying to attack us. And Ammar ibn Yasir tells him why did you not tell me sooner? Why did you not wake me up the first time you got hit? And he said that I had started a surah from the Quran, and I did not want to do injustice by cutting it short. And by Allah, if I was not afraid for my companions, meaning I was not afraid for them to be hurt or killed, I would have been satisfied to die right here, right now. And this was in a state of extra nawafil prayer. This is how much they loved ibadah, that he was willing to die. He would have been completely allowed to break his prayer in that moment, but he still did not. And he wanted to devote himself in that prayer. And what lesson can we learn from this? Of course, some of us have this habit of only praying the obligatory prayers. Whenever we get the chance, we only pray the obligatory prayers. And of course, this is amazing. We are fulfilling our obligations. But especially in this month of Ramadan, we need to start making the habit of praying the extra sunnah prayers as well. Standing in the night in prayer, praying the duha prayer, whatever we can. As the Messenger ﷺ said, whoever prays 12 rakats during the night and day, a house will be built for him in paradise. 4 before Zuhr, and 2 after, 2 rakats of Maghrib, and 2 rakats after Isha, and 2 rakats before Fajr prayer. So there is a great reward attached to this. And the one who has some mistakes in his obligatory prayers, and inshallah the scholars are of the opinion that the nafil prayers and the sunnah prayers will make up those deficiencies in the obligatory prayers. Now going on to the next characteristic. So the first one was loving ibadah, completely devoting oneself to ibadah. The second one was mindfulness of Allah, muraqabah. Basically, the pious, the muttaqeen, they had this characteristic that they always were aware that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching. Never a moment went in their lives where they were unaware of this. Any time a whisper from shaitan would come, they would remind themselves that my Lord is watching. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals in the Quran in Surah Al-Baqarah, know that Allah knows what is within yourselves, so beware of Him, and know that Allah is forgiving and forbearing. And we have a story from the life of Ibn Umar radiallahu anhu. He wanted to see the state of the Ummah. He wanted to see the state of the people at the time. So he goes out into the fields and he finds a shepherd. And this poor shepherd is watching the flock of somebody else, some owner's flock. He goes up to the shepherd and he tells him, whose sheep is this? Or rather, sell me one of these sheep. And the shepherd says, this is not mine to sell. I do not own these sheep. It is owned by someone else. And so to test him, Ibn Umar says to him, it's okay, you won't know. There's hundreds of sheep here. If one goes missing, the owner of these sheep is not going to know. Just sell it to me. He said the owner of the sheep will not know, but the owner of everything in existence will know. My Lord will know. My Lord is watching me. And how will I stand before Him on the day of judgment? Ibn Umar radiallahu anhu, it brought peace to his heart that the Ummah was in this state. And as a reward to that shepherd, he bought that entire flock of sheep and he gifted it to that shepherd. And this is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rewards those who are aware of Him. He rewards them in this life and in the hereafter. The third characteristic that we wanted to talk about is that all of the muttaqeen, especially from the Sahaba and the Salaf al-Salih, they looked to those who were better than themselves as motivation. They were inspired by others and they never let their own good deeds make them arrogant. The Messenger ﷺ said, envy is permitted in only 2 cases. We're talking about jealousy. Jealousy, basically, rather not jealousy, but wanting something that somebody else has. He said envy is permitted in only 2 cases. A man whom Allah gives wealth and he disposes of it rightfully. And a man to whom Allah gives knowledge which he applies and teaches. So these are 2 things that when we see a fellow brother with wealth and spending in the path of Allah, and we see a brother with knowledge and teaching the people and applying that knowledge, We are allowed to want that. We want that for ourselves because those brothers are inspiring us. Now sometimes when we hear these stories of the Muttaqeen and the Sahaba and the Salaf al-Salih, we think to ourselves, how could we ever reach to their level? Those are legendary men and legendary women. How is it possible that we can ever reach their level? Now we have an example from the Tabi'een dealing with this situation. Some of the Tabi'een, they would say about Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu, that we know he is the best of his ummah. He said that on the day of judgment, I know that Abu Bakr will be the first of the Hawd, the cistern of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where he will give the water to the believers. He says, I know Abu Bakr will be there first. But on that day, when Abu Bakr looks back, I want to be seen in the distance. He has accepted the fact that he can never reach Abu Bakr's level. But he has also stated this fact, that whatever is in my power, whatever potential that I have, whatever potential that I can reach, I will reach. And that is the lesson we must learn as well. We know we can't get on the level of the prophets. We know we can't get on the level of the Sahaba. We know we can't get on the level of the Salaf al-Salih. We know this. Yet it is still our responsibility to get on the best level that we ourselves are capable of. And that requires self-reflection from us. Reflecting, am I doing my best? Am I reaching my utmost potential? And that is our responsibility. The next characteristic is that the Muttaqeen always strove for excellence, especially when it came to the deen, it came to the religion. Whenever they did an act of ibadah, they tried to do it perfectly. Whenever they gave charity, they tried to do it perfectly. Whenever they used to teach the people, they tried to do it perfectly. And we have this example from the life of Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. Everything that he did, he tried to hold on to the sunnah of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. To the point that he said that if I give up one sunnah from the life of the Messenger, I will feel lost and I will feel like a failure. This was his commitment to excellence, holding on to the commands of Allah and holding on to the sunnah of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And after the death of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the last command was for Usama bin Zayd to lead an army into the Roman Empire. And some of the Sahaba, after the death of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they questioned this. They said, could we allow a young boy to lead this army? And they brought this up to Abu Bakr. And he said, never will I ever disobey a direct command from a Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This was his devotion and this was his excellence in following the sunnah of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that even the last command, with an 18-year-old young man leading an army, he said, whatever the Messenger commanded, I will follow him. This was the excellence of Abu Bakr. Now the next characteristic, it is the willingness to sacrifice. All of the Muttaqeen, all of the pious predecessors, they made countless sacrifices within their lives. They knew that this religion and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala requires sacrifice from them. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed in the Quran, do people think that they will be let go merely by saying we believe and that they will not be tested? For we indeed tested those who went before them. Allah will most certainly ascertain those who spoke the truth and those who lied. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling the believers that you will be tested in one way or another. And you will be expected to make sacrifices for this cause. And we have the story of Mus'ab ibn Umayr radiallahu anhu, who gave up so much in his life. This was a young man from Quraysh, who was handsome, who had wealth, who had a name for himself, who was from a noble family. And he gave up every single one of these things for the sake of Allah. When he made hijrah to Medina, he was amongst the poorest of the Sahaba. And in the battle of Uhud, he was given the honor of being the flag bearer of the Muslims. And we know on that day, he was martyred in the path of Allah. When the enemies came, they cut his arm off, the one that was holding the flag. And his commitment to this deen was so strong that he picked it up with his other hand while the other one is bleeding out. And then they cut that hand. And at the next point, he picked up that flag with the stubs of his arms. And he lifted it up as high as he could. And then finally, the enemies came and they cut him down. And he was martyred in the path of Allah. And when the time came to bury him, and the time came to shroud him, he was so poor that he did not even have enough cloth to shroud his entire body. They had to put grass on his feet and his remaining cloth on his head. And this was a man who sacrificed everything. Imagine a person who has everything in our society. He is handsome, he has wealth, he has honor, he has respect, he has beauty, everything, and giving it up like nothing for the sake of Allah. This was his example. And this was the sacrifice that he made. And it was so profound, this sacrifice, that it even affected the Sahaba who lived later on into their later ages. And when they recounted the example of Mus'ab ibn Umayr, they would say that he is the winner. He is the one who made sacrifices. Because later on in life, many of the Sahaba became rich, and they saw success, and they saw the empires falling before them. But yet they were looking in awe at the example of Mus'ab ibn Umayr, the one who sacrificed so much. In conclusion, these characteristics, especially in this theme of submission and devotion to Allah, every single one of the Muttaqeen, the Anbiya, the Sahaba, the pious predecessors, they took these characteristics, it molded them, and every single one of them had these characteristics. And so it is our job to learn from these examples. Look at their lifestyles. Look at the lifestyles of the Anbiya. Look at the lifestyles of the Sahaba, of the Salaf al-Salih. Look how they lived, and understand, even the prophets, they were humans just like us. They bled just like us. They felt tired just like us. They got exhausted just like us. Yet they reached peaks that we cannot even imagine. And if we can even emulate just a fraction of their characteristics, a fraction of the way they used to be, and inshallah we will see success in this life and the hereafter. All praise and glory is due to Allah, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive us and guide us and put us on the straight path. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.